need to get a new laptop.
And you know that after 1 hour, it's a disconnect that start playing up the Skype.
Well,
and we have to disconnect.
Hopefully it won't happen from the phone. Let's see. Let's see.
We'll see.
Hope the best. Okay, let's offer respect, Prabhupada. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gananjana
Tasmai Shri Guruvaya Namah.
I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master has kindly opened my eyes with a shining torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, we're continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. Text number 23.
Yep.
My memory is correct. Yep. 23. Yeah. So just to recap from last week. So it's been talking about in this section about worshipping the demigods. Does that those that have material desires? They have the desire to enjoy sense gratification in the material world. So in order to get that, they understand, well, let's try to please the controllers of the universe. And in Vedic culture, it's understood. And many old cultures, even like Maori culture in New Zealand, Aborigine culture in Australia, they understand that there's different controlling beings in the universe. There's beings that control our wealth, that control our health, that control our finding a partner, you know, all different, you know, the water of the earth and everything like that. So they have that understanding. So in order to get the things that they want, they worship these different demigods. And Krishna said in the last verses that if you have those material desires, Krishna himself gives you the faith to worship them. I mean, you can't do anything like we've talked about without some faith. So where does that faith come from? It's revealed here in this section that the faith we have in doing something in this world comes from God. God in our heart, the super soul, he gives us faith to worship a particular person, to do a particular work or service, something like that. So any endeavor, it requires some kind of faith that if I do this work, it's going to make my life better. I'm going to become successful. I'm going to become happy. By doing this, I'm going to become happier. We wouldn't do it. I mean, the fact that you guys have stuck to the soul-searching sessions for so many years, a few years, since we've left, and even before that when we were there, you must have some faith that you feel you're going to get something out of it, some knowledge, that have faith that I'm going to get some knowledge if I attend this, or some happiness, or my next life will be better, or this life will be better, or whatever. So like everyone has some faith, and that comes from God. And then the idea is that by worshipping the demigods, the people get some benefits. And all those benefits, of course, are temporary, because all the benefits that the demigods are giving are related to this body, and the body is temporary. So even if you get more money by worshipping them, or your business is better, or you get a partner or whatever like that, but all these things are going to be temporary. Which came out in the last verse, text 22, is that even the benefits themselves is actually coming from God. I mean, you worship the demigods to get some benefit, but the actual benefit comes from God. So that was established by Krishna. So the idea is, if we actually had intelligence, we'd realize that, well, why do I worship the demigods to get some benefit if actually the benefit's coming from Krishna? Why don't I just directly worship Krishna? And that's what the devotees do. Devotees don't ask demigods for anything. If we do need something, generally the devotees don't need anything. We just depend on whatever Krishna gives us and be satisfied with that.
No middleman.
No middleman, yeah. Yeah, so if we did need something, the devotee will directly ask Krishna, Krishna, please protect me. He's not going to ask, Shiva protect me, but Krishna protect me. Or if we need some money or something, we can't pay the bills, Krishna, please help me out with that. He's not going to ask anyone else. So, because they understand, like this verse is saying, that the benefits is coming from Krishna. So why don't we just directly go to Krishna? And like Gulshan said, no middlemen. So that's intelligent. That's intelligent to do that. So yeah, we're continuing Krishna's recapping on summing it up in this verse 23 about the worship of demigods. He's giving a little recap and a summary because he's spoken about worshipping the demigods for a few verses. So now he's just emphasizing and recapping it in this verse. So let's read the verse. Anta Sham.
Antavastu Phalam.
Have you got it? Are you there?
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear it.
Oh, I'll go down. Okay, looks like the connection's not good upstairs. I'll go downstairs. Bear with me for a second. Okay. Let's get set up. Okay, it should be better. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let's recite the verse again. Antavatu phalam tesham.
Antavatu Phalam Tesham.
Tad bhavatyalpamedasam.
Tad Bhavya Alpamaitsyam.
See, on the second word, bhavati, what you do, you join the Y on the end of it, the alpa. So instead of saying Bhagavatya alpa, you say Bhagavat Yalpa. So Tad Bhava Yalpa made some, then it's easier to say.
Tad Bhavatya Alpamadhyasam.
Yeah, so it becomes Yalpa instead of Alpa, Yalpa. Bhava Yalpa.
Medicine.
Bhava Yalpa made some, then it flows more easier. Okay, and I'll do the third one. Devan Devaya Joyanti.
Devan Devaya Joyante.
Madbhaktayanti mamapi.
Madbhaktayanti Mamapi.
Gulshan, would you like to read the translation, please?
Men of a small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of demigods, but devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet.
Okay. So the first 2 points he's already mentioned, like in what does it say that those intelligences has been stolen? Yeah. In text 20, he says those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender to the demigods. He's already pretty much said that their intelligence has been taken away by material desires and they worship the demigods. So yeah, it means people that worship demigods have less intelligence and there's some ignorance there. If they were more intelligent, then they'd directly worship God. Okay, and then it's mentioned that the fruits are limited and temporary. So I've just said that because the body is limited and temporary. So everything that we might get for the body, that's also limited and temporary. The family is limited and temporary. The house, the car, the job, the money, you know, everything, our body, others' bodies is like that, limited, temporary. But here's a new point here. The new point is that those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods. But my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So that's a big difference. So if you worship any demigod, then when the body dies, you may end up going to that particular planet where the demigod is. So that means somewhere in the material world, because all the demigods are in the material world. However, that Krishna is not, he doesn't reside in the material world. He resides in the spiritual world, which is known as Vaikuntha Loka. Vaikuntha. Where in the topmost planet, there's many planets in Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, and the topmost planet is known as Goloka. Goloka Vrindavan. So Go means cows and Loka means planet. So there's many cows on that planet. And as you know, when Krishna came to the material world, to the earth, he also was living amongst cows and herding cows, and he really loves cows. So not only he really loves cows when he comes to the material world, but even in his eternal home in the spiritual world, there's many cows there. And there's wonderful pastimes having with these cows. And the cows in the spiritual world, they are spiritual cows. They're not ordinary, you know, material cows that grow old and get sick and die and limited like that. So everything in the spiritual world is of the same spiritual nature. So everything in the spiritual world is eternal and full consciousness. So the cows are not ignorant. The cows are fully enlightened and, you know, have complete love for Krishna and, you know, will just want to please Krishna. There's no ignorance there, no passion in them. And also full bliss. They're completely in ecstasy, giving their milk to Krishna. Krishna's taking their milk, and the devotees will turn that milk. Like today, we made some rasgullas from milk.
Oh,
We made some rasgullas. Because when I went to India and Mumbai, I went to the temple Juhu there, and I asked the cooks there, can you show me how you make rasgullas? I've already made them before, but I wanted to learn how to make them better, their technique. So for 3 days, every morning I went in and helped them making the rasgullas and learned how they did it.
it's a very big temple. I've seen the accommodation and all. They have got the restaurant. You been to the restaurant?
Yeah, went to the restaurant.
Oh, very big, very nice.
Yeah, very nice facility there.
It's Amiya Ras is there. You know Amiya?
We saw him. We saw him.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we were there. We did kirtan with him.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. So yeah, so the devotees would take the milk from the cows in the spiritual world and also in the material world and turn it into many wonderful preparations. You know, paneer. You can make sweets with paneer also, as well as in subjects, curries, and condensed milk and, you know, burfi and so many wonderful things. So I made some sandesh today too.
Oh,
you know,
yes, sandesh.
Nice things you can do. And Krishna really enjoys these products from the cows and very lovingly given by the cows. So they're in ecstasy giving their milk to Krishna, and Krishna's enjoying those products. So that's Jayanti was saying in one lecture, Prabhupada was saying that cows should be kept very comfortably. And where the idea of that is if the cows are very happy and comfortable, then they'll give lots of milk. They'll give lots of milk.
Surabhi,
yeah. So, but even in the material world, a Surabhi is the cows in the spiritual world are called Surabhi. That means like wish-fulfilling desire cows. They can give unlimited quantities of milk and even different flavors of milk and even things other than milk. In the spiritual world, the cows are not limited like here to giving only milk. They can fulfill any desires. So Prabhupada was saying, if you keep the cows comfortable and happy, they'll give so much milk, And he mentioned that some cows in New Vrindavan, that's the first Hare Krishna farm in West Virginia in Australia, which is still there. It's very big. That some cows were giving 80 pounds of milk. So 1 kilo is 2 pounds. So that's about
40 liter.
40 liters or kilograms of milk daily. One cow.
Wow.
One cow giving. So obviously they were very happy and very well fed. And they were giving, huge quantities of milk. And the devotees were turning that into ghee, clarified butter, and yogurt, and so many sweets and different things like that. So they were getting, huge amounts of milk and making wonderful things like that. And then the people were happy. So the cows are happy. Then the people get nice food, all kind of delicious. And Prabhupada mentions very good vitamin value. There's so many important vitamins that one can get from the milk. As Prabhupada also mentioned in other places, in previous times, there were the yogis and would just live off milk. That's it. Their whole diet was only milk. They would live in the forest, and they would come to where the cows were being milked once a day in the morning time or whatever like that, and they would just take some milk. And that was it. And everything the body needs, we can get from milk like that. So that's an amazing relationship, very important relationship between the human beings and the cows. And modern society has forgotten that. And now we kill the cows. But actually the cows are so important, alive. And there's so much could be said about that. But that's where Krishna lives, in the spiritual world, is an eternal place full of knowledge, full of bliss. He lives there with cows and so many devotees, and there's peacocks and birds and everything. Prabhupada said that everything that's in the material world is in the spiritual world, but here it's in a perverted reflection. It's a perverted reflection. Like perverted means, like in the material world, the cows are temporary. They're going to die. But in the spiritual, they're eternal. And cows here are ignorant, but in the spiritual world, they're fully conscious. And here also they suffer. Our cows are about 18 years old. We have 2 cows. They're about 18 years old, which in years is about 95. So they're doing pretty well. And but they have, like you can see, that they have a hard time, getting up. Like today, Yamuna, one of them, didn't want to get up, and I had to encourage her by giving her some delicacies that she liked to get up. She was just sitting down. I was a bit worried, because if cows sit down for too long, then their legs all lock up and then they'll never get up. So you have to, and I've seen Kali did that many times, you have to really encourage them to get up quite regularly. If they stay sitting down for a day or more than that, then they may never get up again. So I could see our one didn't really want to get up, so I had to encourage her. So yeah, some suffering is there, but
how many cows have you got, Prabhuji?
Two old cows. Yeah, we're not too old to milk. And but in the spiritual world, the cows are full of bliss. So they're like that. Everything is reflected. So there's cows in the spiritual world. There's cows in the material world. There's monkeys in the spiritual world. So there's monkeys here. And there's, women in the spiritual world, so there's women here. You get the idea. So there's houses in the spiritual world, so there's houses here. But like in the spiritual world, the houses are made of jewels, it's said. And they're like in Brahma Samhita, Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha, that in the spiritual world, the houses are made of jewels like Chintamani, which is touchstone. So Chintamani jewel, touchstone, if you touch it to iron, that iron will be immediately turned into gold. You touch iron with that jewel and it'll turn it immediately into gold. That's Chintamani. So these kind of jewels, like rubies and little diamonds and sapphires and jewels that we don't even know about in the material world, they're there in the spiritual world. So everything that's here is there, but more, and full of knowledge and bliss and eternal, and no negative aspects like that. You know, the impersonalists, the Mayavadis, they say that if you get liberated from the material world, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's no variety, no people, no forms. But by that kind of philosophy, do you think people are very attracted? Oh, yeah, let's go to the spiritual world. Oh, what's there? Oh, nothing. So by that philosophy, people are not attracted to spiritual life. So the way they present it is very dry.
It's like if you study the medicine, but you won't get the job as a doctor. Studying medicine.
Say that again. If you study medicine.
If you study medicine and they say, oh, you won't get any job as a doctor, what's the point of studying then?
Yeah, that's right. You're not going to get any like that. So, but the reality is presented in the Vedas, that in the spiritual world's full of variety, but it's wonderful variety. Why do some people take up that impersonalist path, which is saying there's nothing in the spiritual world beyond this material world? Because those that have had a bad experience here, they've suffered too much in the material world. So when they hear that there's variety in the spiritual world too, then they get scared. Then they think it's the same kind of variety that causes us to suffer here. Or because I suffered in my relationship with my partner here. I suffered in my job. I suffered it with the people, with the animals, and everything like that, with society, and like that. No one loved me, and people treated me badly, or whatever. So you hear that there's relationships in the spiritual world, then they don't want to think that like that. But the mistake they've made is they've compared the material relationships to the spiritual relationships. But that's a big mistake because they're like diametric opposite. You can't get more opposite. Our bodies are temporary. Their ones are eternal. Our ones are miserable. Their ones are blissful. We're full of lust, and our relationships are full of lust. So it doesn't come out very nice. But their relationships are full of love. Our relationships are full of selfishness and greed and envy. But their relationships are full of compassion and all kind of good virtues and everything like that. They're always trying to serve each other and have wonderful relationships. There's no, as Prabhupada said, inebrities or any negative bad things there. So yeah, don't compare the variety of the spiritual world to the material world. Like the highest experience in the spiritual world is called the Rasa Leela. Krishna's dancing with many women. So that's the highest enjoyment in the spiritual world, that Rasa Leela. And it's pure love. But in the material world, that is the lowest. A man dancing with other men's wives or whatever like that in the material world, dancing, and they're getting drunk and having illicit sex and unwanted children, abortion, so many things. That's very horrible. That's the lowest. So it's completely opposite. You can't compare that Krishna's relationships with others in the spiritual world to our relationships in the material world. And when we're so ignorant and passionate, they don't come out very well. But in the spiritual world, it's said it's just the existence there is called Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva means pure goodness. Pure goodness. There's no tamas there, which means ignorance, and no rajas, which means passion. So no ignorance and no passion, just sattva, just goodness. Yeah. So yeah, that's a big difference. If you worship demigods, you're going to take birth again in the material world and continue the suffering. Maybe some higher planet, but even if you go, even like, for example, if you worship the moon god and you go to the moon, even though it's a heavenly planet. So you live there for 10,000 years of the demigods, which is a long time because the year of the demigods is different than here. So one day there is 6 months here, 6 months, and one night is another 6 months. So just one day and a night there is a whole year here. So, and like 10,000 of those years. So 10,000 times by 180. You can't even calculate how long you live there. 10,000 years times by 180. For 6 months is 180 days, right?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so
10,000 of those.
we can't even calculate. But still, it's a long, long time compared to here. And they're enjoying there. And there's generally no old age and no disease, but death is there. So, I mean, if I said, well, hey, Gulshan and Bob, you guys have been so good, you know, and say I won lotto, I'm gonna buy you guys the best house overlooking the beach in Newcastle. One each for you. One mansion each for you, overlooking your favorite beach in Newcastle or wherever you want to go. But and you'll be so happy, right? But then I say, but in 1 year you have to leave it. 1 year you have to leave it. I'm going to kick you out after 1 year. You can stay in it for 1 year, and then
Only 1 year lease.
Would you be satisfied with that? Would you be happy? You can't be happy when you know that your enjoyment's going to end, isn't it? What do you think about it?
You know it's a temporary, 1 year, temporary.
I mean, it doesn't matter. You got. I'm going to give you amazing food for 1 year and beautiful women for 1 year and heaps of money for 1 year. But then after that, it's all going to be taken away from you. How do you feel?
After that, baked bean on the toast.
That'd be torture. That'd be torture. And guess what happens after you finish up in heaven? You fall back down to the earth. So that'd be such a downer. That'd be such a bummer. Especially, you know, what if you fell back down and it's like the end of Kali Yuga, where people are like cannibals and eating each other, and they're just even worse than what they are now. I mean, that'd be just horrible. It'd just be torture. So that's the problem. But even in the heavenly planets, they're enjoying there, but sometimes the demons, the asuras, come, try to take over, and they kick them out. And many times Indra has been kicked out with the other demigods, kicked out of the heavenly planets, and they have to flee and try to save their lives. And even they can have the ability to transform themselves into other forms to try to hide. So they turn into birds and animals and stuff like that to try to hide and protect themselves. So there's always fear, you know. So how can you be, you know, truly happy if you're afraid that someone's going to come and kill you? You know, so that fear is here on earth, but it's also there in the heavenly planets, that some demon's going to come and kick me out and try to kill me. And so there's always anxiety. So yeah, that's what I was going to say, that the spiritual is called Vaikuntha. What that means is vai means without, and kuntha means anxiety. So that is the only place, the spiritual world, which is without anxiety. This material world is called kuntha loka. Kuntha loka means full of anxieties, and the main anxiety is death. And that's why another name of this earth planet is called Martya Loka. So Loka means, I said, planet, and Martya means death.
Death.
Oh, hey, where do you guys live? Oh, I live on Martya Loka.
Death planet.
The death planet. You know, so some people say, oh, well, you know, India has a higher mortality rate than America. We're so lucky in America, you know, because we have a lower mortality rate than India and China and Russia and stuff like that. You know, Africa has a very high mortality rate compared to Europe and like that, first world countries. What a load of hogwash. There's the same mortality rate everywhere. Do you know what it is?
Death.
Yeah, mortality rate means the death rate, right? So what is the percentage death rate? What's the
100%.
It's 100%. Everywhere. I know, it's so clever. That's what Johnny said. They're so clever. They'll present it like, America's more better, Britain is more better. We've got a lower mortality rate. But, mate, get real. It's the same everywhere, It's crazy, and then, the last few years we'll put you on a life support system. But what's the point of that? You don't know whether you're Arthur or Martha, and you're so drugged up, only the machine's keeping you alive. What's the point? And then the family are bummed out too. Not only you're suffering there on life support, but the family are bummed out because they can't get your inheritance. They can't get the inheritance until you're technically dead. So they can't wait for the old geezer to die, so they can get the inheritance. That's what happened, with Walt Disney. Walt Disney, he was so sucked in by the stupid scientists, he believed them, that they were promising, we're going to come up with this pill that's going to stop death. We can make you just pop it in and you won't die. So he said, but we haven't done it yet. We haven't done it yet, but we're working on it. So he had faith. We're talking about faith, so he had faith in these. Oh, someone's just come. Oh, it's Jigme. So he had faith in the scientists. So what happened is he had his body frozen. You heard about that, right? It's called, I think, cryogenics or something.
Yep.
Yeah, where they put you in a deep freeze. And so then your body doesn't break down because it's all frozen, right? And but you're completely unconscious, obviously. And the idea was he thought that I've got it all worked out, so that I'll get frozen, and when they come up with a pill, they can thaw me out, and then I'll eat the pill and I'll live forever. That's a good plan, huh? But no, he failed. You know why he failed? Because, like I said, they couldn't. He was super rich, man. I mean, he had tons of money. Well, Disneyland, right? Creator of Disneyland. So all of his kids couldn't get the money while their dad was technically alive. So they were bummed out. So he had paid $1 million for one firm to keep him frozen, right? $1 million he paid them. Keep me frozen until they come up with the pill. His children got together and paid the firm more than $1 million to pull the plug. Pull the plug on the dad. And guess what happened? He died. He thawed out. There's no pill. And still, after 50 years later or whatever after he died, there's still no pill. And in another 50 years, there's still not going to be a pill, because the nature of the material world is birth, old age, disease, and death. That's the way it is. But that's not a problem, because we just have to leave here and go to the spiritual world. We should realize this is not our real home. Our real home is in the spiritual world. So what a lot of people do, we try to make the material world a better place. But that's a false process. You can't stop birth. You can't stop old age. You can't stop disease. You can't stop death. It's always has been there in the past. It's now in the present. It's going to be there in the future. So rather than try to improve the material and make it better or whatever, but
even somebody will say that, okay, I'll make the pill that you're not going to die. How boring is going to be? You're not going to die. What are you going to do? How boring? What are you going to do every day? It's just like every day, same thing. It's going to be boring, You're not going to die. You live forever. Even if you do, like, for example, if you've been cursed, okay, live forever. How boring.
Yeah, the problem is people have no knowledge that there's a better life.
Yeah.
So this is as good as it gets, So they adjust to the miserable situation and think it's okay. Like when you go to India, you drive on the road and you see some people, they live in the middle of the road, like we call it the median strip. There's a little strip, like a meter wide in between the two, two lanes, right? Yeah. So And then some people you can see they have all their stuff there. They build a little tent over the top and that. And they actually, I've seen them sleeping in the middle while I can't imagine because there's so much noise, right? All the trucks and everything going past and the fumes and the carbon monoxide like that. But they probably think, well, this carbon monoxide has got used to it. They think it's like nectar. It's like, oh, that's a nice smell, this carbon monoxide. Like that, they get so used to it. If you probably invited them, look, please, I've got a better place. You can come and live, down there over the road there. They probably wouldn't come. It's called a conditioned soul. We call conditioned souls. So we get so attached to a particular condition. And we think it's very nice. But someone looking from some higher plane looks down on what we're doing and thinks, oh my God, those guys are just really miserable. God, that's a horrible life. But we're thinking we're okay. Like Prabhupada points out that you go to some, the hospital and the guy's got his leg up in the air in a cast and he's got, drips, intravenous drips in his arm. And you ask him, hey, mate, how are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm fine. But what's that? That's called Maya. That's illusion.
He's been positive. What are you gonna say?
But that's the thing. Our mind tries to convince us that we're okay, that we're happy. I mean, we have a saying in New Zealand: "She'll be right, mate." That's what they say. She'll be right. And maybe in Australia they say the same thing.
Yeah, mate.
I say, yeah, mate. It's all good, bro. I say the Maoris say that here. It's good, bro. Brother, right? It's all good, bro. She'll be right. Like that. So, but it's not. It's not all right. It's not okay. But we think it is. And that's the Maya, that's the illusion that our mind and our false ego is convincing us that we're happy. But there's a happiness far greater. So much is ridiculous. It's just so much better. But because people have no information, they have no knowledge that can be a better life for us, where we don't have to grow old and get sick and die, where people are full of love and compassion and all good qualities and humble and tolerant and forgiving and everything, where people aren't just all, jealous and envious and wicked and everything, like lusty and everything. When we get information of that, then we can, make steps for that. And then obviously we have to let go of this. We have to let go. So a very important part of any genuine spiritual process, it has to be some detachment. It has to be some detachment. We have to start to let go of this material enjoyment, a material life based on sense gratification, material enjoyment. And then, so what do we do about that? How do we show, start the process of detachment? Mainly 4 things, right? No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. What's that? That is detachment. You're letting go of the main ways that we try to enjoy in this material world. And the main way that a human being and a soul in a human body tries to enjoy this body, the main way is through this meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling. So therefore, if we want to progress in spiritual life, then we learn to detach from these things. So we call it renunciation. So we renounce means like give up. We give up these things. And does that mean we don't have any enjoyment? No, it doesn't. But like we said, the higher taste. So then instead of doing all those things, we have wonderful prasadam. We detach from the meat. But does that mean we don't eat anything? Oh, what can I eat? I'm not going to eat meat. Well, does that mean I'm going to starve? No. There's so many, as we talked about, you have the milk products, right? Hundreds of varieties, thousands of varieties. I put up a post recently on our Krishna Culture page on Facebook of our trip to India. And one of the pictures, they at the Juhu temple in Mumbai, it was a festival day, and they offered, must have been like 1,000 different varieties of food to Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. They offered it was just pots and pots in all directions, like tables and tables. full of pots of different foods. So yeah, we've detached from eating meat, but it doesn't mean we're starving. You know, that actually one problem we have is that we tend to eat too much after we become a Hare Krishna. We eat too much, but you know, so and we detach from intoxication, but we get intoxicated by chanting. You know, by chanting and associating with devotees, we feel so intoxicated, so happy by that. You know, like on a Friday night, you remember what we used to experience at the Bhakti Tree on a Friday night. It was intoxicating. You know, people were like become addicted, isn't it? People got addicted. I have to go to the Bhakti Tree on a Friday night. They're like an addict. I can't. People used to tell me that was their favorite day of the week. They always look forward to a Friday going to the Bhakti Tree. Not that look forward to Friday because they're going to go to the pub and drink, but they look forward to Friday because they're going to go to the Bhakti Tree and get their Friday night fix with the you know, the love feast, you know, the Bhakti Tree.
It was really amazing.
Yeah. So that's what we want to experience. You know, we give up the mundane drugs and we get the Krishna drug of, you know, chanting and dancing and having a nice feast with the devotees, associating with devotees, and it feels satisfied. You feel really satisfied and all the anxieties go away and you feel real peace and happiness. You know, so you go to the temple or whatever like that, associate with devotees. So like that, we've detached from intoxication, we replace it with something better like that. And we've detached from sex, but we replace that with pure love. That we replace that with the, you know, we had a desire, we just want to please our own senses, please the genitals or whatever, but we replace that with a desire to please Krishna's senses, and that's called prema. So we came from calm. Calm means lust, which is a desire to please our own senses, and we're replacing that with prema, which is a desire to please Krishna's senses. So previously, you know, that people, their only happiness is just try to titillate their senses, you know, to please the tongue through eating food and please the genitals through sex, please the belly through filling it up with stuff like that. Cigarettes, the tongue, you know, what's that for? Pleasing the tongue, you know, like that. So pleasing the tongue and the genitals like that. But we replace that by gratifying our spiritual senses, by feeling real love. And that's why sometimes devotees, they cry. Why is that? Well, are they not feeling anything? No, of course they are. They're feeling so much happiness that sometimes they cry. I've told you before, sometimes Prabhupada tears would come from his eyes sideways like a water pistol or a syringe. We can't even imagine how much happiness he was feeling for the tears to come sideways. But even I've had experiences, not like that, but where I've cried feeling so much happiness and doing, you know, the different services for Krishna, and it feels so happy. And so it's very natural. It's very natural that you can give up the lower thing if you get the better thing. Just like when we were young, I don't know about you guys what your hobbies were, but when I was young, I'd play with Meccano and Lego. So Lego, Meccano, and I had collect stamps, and I had a few different things that I used to do. And then, but do I do that now? No. So what did I do? Then I got a car. You know, as soon as I got my own car, then I forgot about the Meccano and the Lego and the stamps and stuff like that. You know, so you progress from one you know, one habit to another. When you get a better thing, then you give up the lower thing. So what about you guys? What did you do for entertainment when you were young?
In India, street soccer ball, push bike. That's pretty much very limited in India. You know, that's we brought up on the street. Only go home to just a sleep and a meal. Mostly time on the street.
Well, I'm sure you enjoyed that, getting together with the other boys.
Of course, that was the best time. You know, it's, it's the best time. You can't become back in there, but yeah, it's a wonderful time. It's like no fear, no worries, no responsibilities.
Yes.
It's a great time.
Yeah.
But everything come and go. Young age come and go. Child age come and go. But the old age, they don't come and go. They'll take you.
Well, it does come and go, but then
Come and go means, yeah. I mean, if you say death, death is not really a word. Like, who's died? The soul never died.
Yeah.
So what's the death? Nothing. Just changing form.
Prabhupada pointed out the logic of it, of reincarnation, the logic of reincarnation, that you had a baby's body, and that baby's body changed into a child's body, and the child's body changed into a youth's body, and the youth's body changed into a middle-aged body, and the middle age into old age
To death.
and then another body. So that's the logic. And we have the pictures, right, in all the books of the changing bodies. So just like you've changed from boyhood to youth, youth to middle age to old age. So death is just another change.
Yeah.
It's another change. You see, the thing is with this body, right, changes are happening so gradually that you don't notice the changes. But like if you look back at your pictures when you were young, you go, oh, it's obvious, right? It's obvious that, well, I can't even recognize myself. I look completely different. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if your mum pulls out your pictures of when you're a little baby, you wouldn't even recognize. There's nothing in common. No, nothing similar. There's not, even scientifically, every 7 years, the scientists say, every single cell changes.
Sorry.
Basically, you have a whole new machine within 7 years. There's not one thing in this body, between your head and your toe, there's not one thing that lasts longer than 7 years. Even your brain cells, even in your heart, even your bones, all the bits. But it's just changing so gradually, you don't notice it. It's like one day I'm going to change the tire on the car. Another day I'm going to change the steering wheel. Another day I'm going to change the bonnet. Another day I'm going to change the carburetor. Then I'm going to change the oil. And then after 7 years, you've got a whole new car. It's like that. It's like that.
Just pardon me. One sec.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the nature of the material world. And we get so conditioned thinking that's okay. But it's not. The soul's not happy with that, because our real nature is to be in the spiritual world. It's not our real nature. Oh, you disappeared and came back.
Oh, no, I've got just an incoming call on the Skype.
Okay.
I disconnect that one call, disregard that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the body is made of the 5 element, and that 5 element back to the nature, and then soul will move on and then come back to next time in the 5 element or so. So basically, there's no such thing as a death.
That's correct. That's correct.
So it's like, it's like a morning, and then it's gonna be middle of the day, afternoon, evening, night. Next morning we'll be, crying somewhere else. It's just a day gone, and then we'll be like, maybe juggling some other country or something like that. That's it. Morning, midday, afternoon, evening, night, and next morning we'll be somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, Prabhupada says that death, in the death process, all it is there's a few months. I mean, I think he mentions about 6 months. There's about 6 months of unconsciousness, because, the one body dies and then the soul's transferred into the womb of some mother somewhere, whether it's a human or some other womb. If it was a human womb, then the soul's there. I mean, right from the beginning, from day one, because I mean that embryo can't grow.
Yeah, without soul.
Soul there. You know, the reason why that embryo is growing is because there's a soul there. That's why we don't agree with abortion, because we say that that there's life there, that there's life there right from the beginning, and life comes from the soul. Right?
Sorry, where did he say in that 6 months?
Okay. Yeah, so I'll get to that now. So it's said that the soul becomes conscious after 6 months in the womb. So the first 6 months, there's not much consciousness there. But at 6 months, the living being, the soul, becomes conscious of its situation inside that womb, becomes conscious of its pain inside that, because they're cramped up like bent like a bow, right? The back is bent like a bow and all twisted around and everything. So it becomes aware at 6 months. The child becomes aware of what's going on. So if for example, the mother eats some hot chilies or something very salty or whatever, the child gets burnt inside the embryo, inside the fetus or whatever you call it. And it feels burnt, uterus, and they feel that, so that they become conscious of the experience there after 6 months, and then of course whatever 9-10 months they pop out, right? So all that was is 6 months of not being conscious. Like at night, right? At night when we're not conscious for whatever 6 or 8 hours, you're not conscious. So death is like sleeping for 6 months.
Pretty
Sleeping for 6 months, like that. So because like that at night time, right? It's like a small death. You know, Prabhupada often said that when you go to bed, it's like death. You know, you're not conscious for 6 or 8 hours. But in that time of death, at the end of life, you could say, is like the same thing. You go to sleep for 6 months, and then you wake up, and you're in this womb. Let me get out of here. And it said that the soul, this is mentioned in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this whole experience in the womb. And the Bhagavatam is so amazing science. It even explains the whole process, even inside the womb. It's all described there very graphically, how there's little worms, parasites biting on the tender body of the baby, and how their back is bent like a bow, and if the mother eats hot food, it burns them. So it's all mentioned there. And so at 6 months they become conscious, and then they said that they pray to God, please get me out of here. If you get me out of here, I promise I'll surrender to you. But then and of course at 9 months they do get out of there, and they're shoved out. But at that time is so traumatic then of being squeezed out through that little hole, then they become unconscious. Many times the soul becomes unconscious due to that traumatic experience, and then forgets the promise it made in the womb. Get me out of here and I'll surrender to you. And then of course when we come out into externally into the world, then it's all goo goo gaga, we love you, cutie, 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 cutie. So then the parents' love, it bewilders the soul, and again Maya, that again they're in forgetfulness, that I can be happy. My mum is like cutie, cutie, chubby cheeks, and we love you, and we love you so much, and all the cuddles and pats and nice milk and warm body and everything like that. So again, we're in Maya, that we've forgotten our relationship with God and thinking we can be happy. Again, but it's said in the womb, the soul is praying to God, please get me out of this miserable condition like that. So yeah, this is a situation in the material world. It's very, very difficult. So that's why, people don't take the spiritual life. They get misinformed that, there's nothing in the spiritual world, it's just darkness and a void and whatever. So, and they think there's no more happiness in what we're getting now. In that way, we waste our valuable life, So Our only saving grace is if we meet the spiritual master, you know, a pure devotee of the Lord. It can, you know, snap us out of the illusion, wake us up. That's our saving grace, you know, that Prabhupada has enlightened us out of our ignorance. So we're eternally, the disciple is eternally indebted to his spiritual master. The disciple never feels that we can repay the debt to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is showing us the way to eternal life. How can you repay someone that is giving you eternal life? What can you do? If you give them $1 million, does that equalize? 10 million, and give them a big house. You know, what can you do? If you serve them for 10 years or 20 years, 30 years, does that repay the debt to someone that gives you eternal life? Like that. It's
no debt can repay that.
So that is said, the disciple always feels indebted, that I can never repay that, but he always tries to. He always feels I have a debt to pay my spiritual master. So how do we begin? How do we begin to repay that debt? Is first of all, you know, following the instructions and trying to become Krishna conscious, and then trying to help other people, just like the spiritual master helped us. The spiritual master set us on the path to become Krishna conscious. So we repay that by helping others, helping to set others on the path, helping others like that. To just pass it on. Someone gave the mercy to me, so we pass it on. Okay, let's get into the purport. Bob, do you want to start reading that purport?
Sure.
So I want to say something.
Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their
Bob,
fruits are...
hang on, Giant is saying something in the background.
Many times, say spiritual master.
Come closer so they can hear you too.
I'm saying spiritual master. Nobody like that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm saying spiritual master is, so everyone who's giving the knowledge is treated as spiritual master. But many times we forget that. We just focus on spiritual master being like the person who initiated. The only thing, so I'm asking you, why are you looking somewhere?
So Giant is asking a question. We may think that the spiritual master is just the person that gives initiation, means gives the spiritual name and you make vows to. But no, that's not just that person that we're indebted to. Well, definitely we're indebted to them. But we're indebted to anyone that gives us, you know, knowledge about Krishna and the spiritual world. So of course, I mean, our greatest debt for everyone is to Prabhupada, because he has given so much knowledge, like 60 plus books, you know, and recorded, you know, so many morning walks, so many conversations, lectures, everything. You know, he's at his advanced age, you know, he's sacrificed everything, risked everything, you know, to give us this knowledge. And you know, so our ultimate debt is to him. And even if we're not initiated, read his books, and then he's constantly there to give us knowledge and guidance and like that. And we're trying to represent Prabhupada, you know, as so many persons trying to repeat what Prabhupada has told us. We try to repeat that to others. But ultimately, it's all Krishna's love. It's Krishna's love for us coming through Prabhupada, coming through, you know, the initiating spiritual master, Krishna's love coming through, you know, someone trying to give guidance, whether they're a man or a woman or whatever like that, but they're trying to give some guidance. It's all Krishna's love is coming through us. We're just like instruments. We're all just instruments for Krishna. So we should all be thinking morning to night, thank you, Krishna, thank you, Krishna, thank you, Krishna. From in my heart, he's giving me guidance. Externally, he's giving me guidance from the initiating guru, the instructing guru, from the scriptures like that. So from other devotees like that. So that's Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy. So thank you, Krishna. That's why we say Krishna is like expressing our glorification of Krishna. Gratitude, our gratitude, Krishna, and giving us this knowledge to help us get out of this world and go to the spiritual world. Thank you, thank you. You can turn this other light on, close by. Okay, Bob, sorry to interrupt. You can get into that.
You're all right.
Say anything?
Okay, men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. Some commentators on the Bhagavad Gita say that one who worships a demigod can reach the Supreme Lord. But here it is clearly stated that the worship of demigods go to the different planetary systems where various demigods are situated, just as a worshipper of the sun achieves the sun, or a worshipper of the demigods of the moon achieves the moon. Similarly, if anyone wants to worship a demigod like Indra, he can attain their particular god's planet. It is not that everyone, regardless of whatever demigods is worshipped, will reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is denied here, for it is clearly stated that the worshippers of demigods go to different planets in the material world, but the devotee of the Supreme Lord goes directly to the Supreme Planet of the Personality of Godhead. Want me to keep going?
Keep going.
Here the point may be raised that if the demigods are different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, then the same end should be achieved by worshipping them. However, worshippers of the demigods are less intelligent because they don't know to what part of the body food must be supplied. Some of them are so foolish that they claim that there are many parts and many ways to supply food. This isn't very sanguine. Can anyone supply food to the body through the ears and eyes? They do not know that these demigods are different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord. And in their ignorance, they believe that each and every demigod is a separate god and a competitor of the Supreme Lord. Keep going?
Yeah.
Not only are the demigods parts of the Supreme Lord, but ordinary living entities are also. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Brahmanas are the head of the Supreme Lord. Is it
Kshatriya?
Kshatriya?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kshatriya. Yeah. They're the warriors, the military.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Are his arms, and the Vaishyas
Yeah, Vaishyas.
are his waist, and the Sudras are his legs, and all serve different functions. Regarding the situation,
What happened there? Prabhuji, you have to disconnect and connect again. 4 o'clock now.
Who, me?
No.
Okay.
Abe Prabhu.
All signing off and join back.
Righto.